Today's ETF battles a clash of core U.S. equity titans. We've got a trio of ETFs tied to growth, mega caps, and broad market dominance going head to head. So which strategy delivers the strongest punch for investors? Let's find out right after this. Welcome to ETF Battles. I'm Ron DeLegge. Season 7 is in full swing, and you're part of it. Now, before we start, be sure to hit that subscribe button and become part of the ETF Battles community. And tell me which next battles you'd like to see on the program with your exact ETF tickers. Bring your best ideas. Again, hit that comment section below. Now, before we dive into today's matchup, check out Direction's Defined Income Boost ETFs, built to deliver monthly income engineered around the stocks that you already know. The ETFs are designed to pay twice monthly distributions, and then the strategy targets a 20% annualized yield. To learn more, visit Direction.com or use the link in the description section below. So, today's ETF contest was requested by a longtime viewer named Gladstone. It's between ETF heavyweights, the Triple Qs from Invesco, SCHG from Charles Schwab, and then VOO from Vanguard. Now, Gladstone also threw in a personal judge request, which is totally allowed, asking for Dave Kreinces and Tony Dong. Well, Tony couldn't make it, so we've got half the dream team, actually 100% of the dream team. We've got Dave plus Mike Akins, who's every bit as sharp and capable, sitting in the judge's seat. Gladstone, thanks for today's ETF matchup request. Judges, great to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Ron.
Ron, Mike, great to see you guys. We finally have the original crew back together.
We do, and it's great to be together. We did our very first ETF Battles episode. For those of you not familiar, these were our first two judges, the OGs. So glad to have both of you guys still with us, and we have the band, yes, officially back together. So our 4 battle categories are cost, exposure, strategy, performance, and then mystery. Mystery, of course, is where you, our judges, can choose any factor or criterion that you feel is crucial to today's matchup. Keep in mind, none of the battle outcomes are ever predetermined or known in advance by myself or our judges. So I've got the scorekeeping duties. Let's kick things off with the first category, which is cost. And we'll start with you, Dave.
Ron, before we get to this core equity update, I just want to say that today is exactly 53 days since the Knicks won the championship. We are still celebrating, and it was amazing. And in honor of their epic season, I dedicate this ETF battle to the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson. At 6'2", Brunson was extremely doubted by most, including me. Yet Brunson was the core of the Knicks championship offense, dominating the NBA, and he delivered a 45-piece to close the finals on the road. In my lifetime, I've never seen New York that happy. So the first person who writes "Knicks are the champs" in the comments for this video gets a signed copy of our priceless book, Investable Benchmarks. Go Knicks. Okay, for cost, all 3 of these ETFs are super cheap, and VOO is the lowest cost. However, when you adjust for the amount of technology exposure, I favor the NASDAQ 100. And among the lower cost NASDAQ 100 ETFs, we pick QQQM. So on a value adjusted basis, I give the win on cost to the NASDAQ 100 wildcard QQQM.
Well, thank you, Dave. That's a strong start. And I know that the New York Knicks Public Relations Department will be very pleased with your start to today's contest. And Mike, you're up next. Give us your take on cost.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I was actually going to throw in the QQQM as the lower version of the QQQ for those users that are looking for a longer term hold. It is a little less liquid, but they're all these ETFs we're talking about, extremely cheap, extremely liquid. So I don't think cost is a big factor in today's battle.
That takes us next to exposure strategy. Mike, you're still up. Break it down for us. How do these ETFs compare?
Yeah, so you've got one large cap growth. Well, you really have 2 large cap growth, SCHG, which is a U.S. large cap growth strategy by Schwab, QQQ, which is de facto a large cap growth strategy tracking the largest 100 stocks on the NASDAQ exchange minus financials. And then you have the S&P 500 as tracked by VOO. So there is going to be some differences, but if you look at like the direct kind of top 10 holdings, they're going to be very, very similar. So you're going to have pretty high correlation across all three of these strategies. The big difference then becomes kind of that growth tilt. And as Dave alluded to, when we're talking cost, your sector tilts. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I would focus on here is two things. One, top 10 allocations for these portfolios. QQQ is currently sitting at 54% in the top 10 companies. SCHG is sitting in 52%, and VOO is at 36%. That's pretty high across the board, but obviously those two growth portfolios really diving into those mega cap names, the Meg 7 names. And that's great as long as that's what you want to hold, but it's very important to understand relative to your diversification aspect. So really then it comes down to, what are you looking for? So I kind of think, broad-based, own the VOO. If it's a long-term hold, I think you're going to have a better long-term result versus being super tech-heavy with the Qs and SCHG, as well as extremely concentrated in those top 10 names. And when I say better exposure, sure, the QQQs right now are killing it, but they may be getting a little long on the tooth. And if you kind of just think about for the next 10 years, I think a better buy and hold strategy right now is VOO. For if you're timing into large cap growth and you think that run is getting ready to continue to go and keep accelerating, then obviously you won't be able to keep up with the Qs or SCHG, which is the Schwab large cap growth.
Great takes. We appreciate that. Dave, you're up next. Give us your analysis.
For exposure, U.S. equity is often the largest core asset class for investors, and technology has been the main driver. And since the inception of ETF Battles, I've been saying the NASDAQ 100 is the next generation S&P. Just this past quarter, BlackRock and State Street, two of the world's largest asset managers, both launched new NASDAQ 100 ETFs. Now, all three of the Battle funds have many of the same top holdings as Mike mentioned, and the NASDAQ 100 has the most tech, so I give the win on exposure to the NASDAQ 100.
Well, that takes us next to performance, and Dave, you're up. So drill down for us. How do these ETFs compare when it comes to performance?
On performance, the NASDAQ 100 has been very hard to beat. Over the past decade, QQQ delivered 572% or 21% annualized, which was far ahead of SCHG and VOO. The NASDAQ 100 also outperformed over the trailing 5-year and 1-year periods. So I give the win on performance to the NASDAQ 100, and certain leveraged ETFs have been off the charts, including NASDAQ 100 3 times TQQQ, which has $39 billion in assets. The 10-year total return for this American Dream ETF is now almost 31x. TQQQ actually delivered a sensational 41% annualized.
That's pretty impressive. Thank you for those stunning performance figures. And Mike, you're up next. How do you see it when it comes to performance?
Anybody that knows anything about the markets knows that you're not keeping up with the NASDAQ 100 these days. It's been tech exposure dominated by large cap. However, we're starting to see that broaden out this year, right? That's not nearly talked about as much, but small caps are crushing large caps year to date. So I do think that, investors should think about staying allocated. We're getting a broadening of the market, maybe some of that AI technology filtering down into the smaller caps. Sticking to this battle on a backward-looking basis, the Qs are the absolute winner, followed closely by Schwab Growth, and then pretty much in a distant third, which is crazy to say considering how much VOO is up on the different 1, 3, 5, 10-year timeframes, is VOO. On a look-forward basis, I think in the near term, probably going to be tough to see that changing. But over the long term, as a base strategy, I think it'll be tougher. The S&P is probably going to deliver a smoother ride. Dave mentioned TQQQs, and it's been phenomenal. However, I will tell you that when you look at TQQQs, how many 80+% drawdowns did you weather during that period, and how many investors actually held on to it during those 80% drawdowns? So there has to be a consideration of, can you stay the course with the investment vehicle you're investing in?
Do the trade that makes you puke. That was which hedge fund manager said that? I forgot who it was. But yeah, great points, Mike. And so between QQQ and VOO, which one of those was your choice?
Oh, I think going on a look-forward basis, I think VOO is a better foundation for a portfolio. I think the Qs are a great product, but I think that it's going to provide a little bit of volatility. And I do think, maybe not this year, maybe not the next, but our real drawdowns in our future.
That takes us next to the mystery battle category. This is where our judges give us that mystery factor or thing that they think is pertinent and crucial to today's contest. Mike, you're up. What is your mystery battle category, and which of these ETFs wins it?
So my mystery category is concentration, and just how much of these U.S. large cap indexes are getting basically driven by a handful of names that are trillion-dollar companies and driving the entire portfolio. That's fine. If you want to go own those names, hell, there's an ETF. If you just want to own the Meg 7s, go own the Meg 7s. If you're looking for a foundation of a portfolio, I do think we can expect some broadening in the market. And honestly, even the S&P 500, which is the winner of my mystery category for our battle here, VOO, is still extremely top heavy. So to that end, I think you have to look at it from a standpoint of maybe introducing something that goes outside of a pure market capitalization weighting. I think equal weighting is having a good run. I think it could be a good way to offset or at least maybe split market cap with equal weight to get a little broadening out, or look for something with a factor that's going to get you a little less concentration in those same 7 names we've been talking about for the last 7 years.
So what you mentioned a wild card. What was that ticker?
Oh, just RSP would be like an equal weight version of the S&P 500. But I also think there's a lot of great, other either factor or active strategies that will get you some of that diversification and still not have crazy tracking relative to the market, but perhaps provide a little bit more consistency if and when this mega cap tech dominance starts to roll over.
Got it. Thank you, Mike. Dave, you're up next. What is your mystery battle category, and which of these ETFs wins it?
Well, it's no mystery that the position size decision is almost as important as security selection. With regard to these broadly diversified battle ETFs, we could allocate over 100% of our active strategies to any of these funds. So I call the position size category a split decision.
Well, that takes us to the part of the show where our judges are going to give us their overall winner before we declare it on the scorecard officially. Dave, you're up. Give it to us.
Ron, to recap this phenomenal core U.S. equity update, investors are reminded of the difficulty in outperforming the top indexes. And this year, even with the Mag 7 underperformance, the NASDAQ 100 still finds a way to win. And that speaks to the strength and depth of technology in the NASDAQ 100 beyond the Mag 7. So I give the battle win to NASDAQ 100 ETFs QQQM and TQQQ. And I also want to highlight the trailing 15-year chart of TQQQ because the long-term return is hard to believe. The trailing 15-year total return for TQQQ is now 217x, which was 29 times the return of the S&P. TQQQ was actually doubted even more than Jalen Brunson and the Knicks, yet the TQs have won the championship as well in being the best diversified growth fund long-term by an epic margin. Truth is stranger than fiction. Still, technology does crash at times, so investors must be mindful of the extreme risk in stocks and leverage in general, and always employ proper position sizing and risk controls.
Mike, your final chance to win. What's your overall winner?
Yeah, pretty easy for me. I think as a foundation of a portfolio, it's pretty tough to beat the S&P 500. It's going to give you broad, diversified access to the U.S. large cap market. I do believe that investors should look beyond just the core U.S. component. As I mentioned earlier in the show, small caps are starting to expand out and crushing the large cap industries year to date. We're also seeing on the 1 year basis, where going overseas has started to provide some outperformance and some diversification that way. There are signs that we're getting we're getting a broadening of the market. So, as we have this conversation, my winner for a foundation here is VOO, but I think investors should be considering how can, we're starting to see benefits of diversification instead of, quite frankly, what we've been in for the last 10 years, the cliche word diversification.
Well, our judges have spoken, and according to my battle scorecard, we got a split decision between VOO, which tracks the S&P 500. That was Mike's choice, and Dave's choice, the triple Qs, and a wild card mention for TQQQ. And certainly each of our judges made strong arguments. Dave likening all of his choices to the New York Knicks, the victorious champions. And certainly if you look at the historical performance, it's been hard to argue with. Tech has absolutely dominated. Mike making the argument that for a smoother ride and going forward, we may see, and we're already starting to see early signs of broadening of the market, not just technology leading the way, but now we're starting to see some of these other areas like small caps, international warming up and joining the party. So great arguments and great observations by both of our judges. Great job to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, guys. Happy summer, everyone.
Be sure to hit the description section below. We've got links to both of our judges. Get in touch. How did you enjoy today's episode? Hit me up with your comments, and also hit me up with your next battle requests on the next episode of ETF Battles. Your exact ETF ticker symbols, please. You can also find us on X at ETFguide. That's our feed. I'm Ron DeLegge. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next show.